50 years, that's more than 18,000 days of sharing a life, sharing problems, and sharing breakfast. If I could go back in time and give just one piece of advice to my younger self and to you today, it would be this: stop trying to win against your husband. In a marriage, either you both win or you both lose together. In this video, I'm going to explain why arguing is a strategic mistake and how you can get everything you want without ever having to raise your voice. Pay close attention to the pause system I'm going to teach you in a moment. It's the secret to keeping the peace in any home. But for you to understand how this peace works, we first have to face an uncomfortable truth about how we were taught to solve problems. You see, there's a very dangerous idea out there that fighting is the way to fix things. We believe that if we point out the other person's mistake clearly enough or speak loudly enough, the message will finally get through his head and he'll change. But life has taught me that the human heart is like a flower. It closes up tight when it feels the cold wind of criticism or an aggressive tone of voice. I spent years thinking my words were a hammer that was going to shape my husband. If he forgot something, I hammered. If he let me down, I hammered harder. I thought I was fighting for our marriage, but in reality, I was just destroying the very foundation of our home. It took me nearly 2 decades to realize that he wasn't changing because of my arguments. He was simply protecting himself from me. And when a man feels attacked inside his own home, he shuts down and stops opening up. The problem with fighting isn't the reason for the argument, whether it's money, the dishes, or attention. The mistake is believing you can grow a garden using a bulldozer. Fighting is a mistake because it focuses on winning in the moment, ignoring the fact that you have to live with the defeated person the next morning. A marriage only prospers when the home is the safest place in the world for both people. And fighting is the first thing that destroys that safety. I personally believe that the gentle silence of a wise woman communicates far more than an hour of shouting. Silence gives a man room to think. Noise only gives him room to defend himself. And do you know why the noise scares them so much? There's something about men that we take a long time to understand. They're hardwired to solve problems, but they freeze up completely in the face of criticism. When a conversation starts with, "You never," or "You always," their ears close up instantly. It's as if an invisible shield goes up. They're no longer hearing how you feel. They're only hearing that they've failed. And nobody likes to feel like a failure inside their own home. Think about the last few times you tried to have a serious conversation. Did you start by pointing out his mistake or by talking about how you were feeling? There is a massive difference between those two paths. I remember a phase when I was exhausted, feeling like I was doing everything alone. My reaction was to wait for my husband to get home and immediately snap, "You never help with anything. You just come home and head straight for the couch." The result? A night of silence and the cold shoulder. Until one day, I tried something different. I sat down next to him and said, "Honey, I'm feeling really overwhelmed today, and I miss sharing the load with you. Can you help me?" His look changed instantly. He didn't feel attacked. He felt needed. I learned that being vulnerable isn't being weak. Quite the opposite. It takes a lot of strength to put down your weapons and say, I need you. A husband who loves his wife wants to be her hero, not her target. Think about that for a second. When was the last time you let your husband be your hero? So instead of pointing your finger at what he did wrong, try showing him what you're feeling inside. Replace the accusation with an invitation. When you invite your husband to take care of you, instead of demanding that he change, you open a path that fighting could never open. I decided to share these lessons so you wouldn't take as long as I did to learn them. So take a moment to subscribe to the channel to keep receiving valuable advice. But I know what you're thinking right now. You're probably wondering, but how am I supposed to give this gentle invitation if I'm boiling with anger inside? I know, it's hard. Have you ever felt that heat rising up your neck in the middle of a conversation? That urgent urge to snap back with the perfect comeback that will leave him speechless? We've all been there. But I'm making an invitation to you now. Before you take that shot, ask yourself if you want to be right or if you want to have peace tonight. Because at the end of the day, the words we use in the heat of the moment are like nails hammered into a board. You can pull the nail out later and apologize, but the hole will always stay there in the wood. What happens is that our brain, when it enters this attack and defense mode, shuts down our empathy. We stop seeing our husband as the love of our life and start seeing him as a target. That's why so many small discussions turn into huge fights. It's not about the subject itself, but because nobody wants to be the first one to lower their guard. The fight becomes a game of survival where the marriage is the one that ends up defeated. I used to be so proud of having a quick answer for everything. I thought it was a sign of intelligence. But today, after 5 decades of sharing the same pillow, I've understood that my silence is one of my most powerful tools. I learned to drink a glass of water very slowly before responding to anything that makes me angry. Those 10 seconds, the pause system I mentioned at the beginning, are the time I need to remember that the man in front of me is my best friend. I'd 1,000 times rather bite my tongue than hurt his heart. And you know, once we learn to breathe and bite our tongue, something curious happens. We start to see things more clearly. But that clarity can be dangerous if you don't know where to look. Let me tell you something I only realized after many years of grumpy silences and bitterness. Our focus works like a flashlight in the dark. It only lights up what we point it at. If you spend all day pointing your flashlight at the socks on the floor, at the times he forgets to compliment you, or at that annoying habit he has, your whole marriage is going to look dark and flawed. What happens to many of us is that we end up becoming fault-finding experts. We get so good at noticing what's wrong that our brain simply deletes everything he's doing right. Do a quick mental exercise with me right now. If your husband made a list of the things you said to him in the last week, would that list have more thank yous or more complaints? It's a shock when we stop to think about it, isn't it? There was a phase around our 30th year of marriage when I became that inspector. I'd look at him from across the table, And all I could think was, wow, he could have done that differently. I was so focused on what was missing that I stopped seeing the wonderful man who was right there, trying his best for me. I was trying to fix him, but what was broken was my vision. It was only when I decided, by my own will, to start hunting for the things he got right, no matter how small, that the atmosphere in our home truly changed. I truly believe that a happy wife isn't the one who has a perfect husband, but the one who chooses to admire what's good in him instead of punishing him for what he isn't yet. A sincere compliment is what makes a man want to be better. Criticism only makes him want to hide. So, my advice to you as a friend today is, change your lens. Try to notice that quiet effort he makes, that bill he paid without complaining, or the way he takes care of you in his own way, even if it's not your ideal way. When you become your husband's biggest fan, you gain an ally who would do anything to see you smile. Look at him today with different eyes. Try to find that quality that made you fall in love with him 10, 20, or 30 years ago. It's still there, I promise. In the end, dear, I look at my 50 years of marriage and I realize our love wasn't built on big heroic moments or luxury trips. It was built in the silence of these small decisions we talked about today. In the decision not to take the bait in a fight. In the decision to be a safe haven instead of a courtroom. You know, a happy marriage isn't a miracle that falls from the sky, nor is it luck. It's a garden that needs to be tended to every single day. Life shows us that we reap exactly what we plant in our home. If you plant criticism and confrontation, you will reap distance. But if you plant patience and that invitation I taught you, you will reap a partnership that time cannot destroy. Mature love is the kind that understands that peace is worth far more than having the last word. Are you ready to be the person who brings that peace into your home today? Sometimes it only takes a spark of kindness to put out a fire that's been burning for years. Today, when I look at my husband, now with his white hair and his slower pace, I feel immense gratitude for having learned to hold my tongue back then. If I had kept that hammer in my hand, trying to shape him by force, maybe today we'd be living like two strangers under the same roof. But because I chose vulnerability and wise silence, we have a connection today that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. I truly believe that a woman's greatest power lies in her ability to create the atmosphere of the home. If you are at peace, your home will have peace. And there is nothing more attractive to a man than a wife who is his refuge, not his judge. Your husband isn't perfect, and you aren't either. But your marriage can be a wonderful place if you decide to stop fighting against him and start fighting for him. Take these tools, the pause, the invitation, the lens of admiration, and start today. You'll be surprised at how quickly a man's heart softens when he feels respected and loved. Take a look at your wedding photo today. Remember the promise you made. It's worth taking care of, isn't it? If this video touched your heart, share it with a friend who also needs a little peace in her marriage. And don't forget to subscribe so we can continue this porch talk of ours. My husband and I are here to show you that happily ever after takes work, but it's worth every second. See you in the next video.